Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with the final installment of the Gambit Limited series. The titular thief has left his wife Belladonna in the care of Rogue, whose curiosity tempted her to absorb the woman's memories, but she chose not to. Only for Donna to have a sudden case of arm grabby, and the deed was done anyway. Meanwhile, Gambit traveled to Paris to see the external called Candra, who's revealed to have controlled the feuding assassin and thieves guild for centuries. After a fight with Julian and his goons nearly cost the life of Remy's adopted father, he leaves with the elixir of life he sought. But since Candra hid it in her cleavage, his theft doesn't go unnoticed very long, and she's less than ecstatic.
The cover is simple, but fairly dramatic. Gambit charging two hands full of cards with the energy so intense it seems to separate his head from his body. Kinda looks like he's doing an impression of Ghost Rider. As the issue begins, he's doing his best Daredevil impression perched upon a church, musing about how long it's been since he's been inside, and wondering if committing certain sins to save his wife can be considered sins at all. But this isn't just any church, it's
the Church of the Lost Thieves.
With a name like that, I somehow get the feeling they don't bother with a collection basket.
Within the church, Julian waits for Pierre, expositing out loud how he needs his Thieves Guild vial in addition to the one he stole from the tithe collector, and the last one he'll get from Gambit after he kills him. Though it doesn't explain how he even knows Remy successfully got it from Candra. He was busy being tossed out a window, remember? Anyway, said mutant distracts Julian with a card and takes the vial, explaining Pierre was caught stealing the thieves' vial, and the rest of the guild was none too pleased at this backstabbery that we don't get to see. He tries to retake the vial, but Gambit's foot says no take backsies. Weakly crawling after his brother-in-law, the assassin takes off his mask, showing what the elixir has done to him, and how he won't last another day without more. Jean-Luc is elsewhere in the church, musing on his narrow survival of the wounds he suffered in Paris, and the rare opportunity it was to actually meet the founder of both guilds.
You do remember she kidnapped you, right? Or is all forgiven because she's attractive and shows a bit more skin than most? And I guess his wounds couldn't have been that fatal if he's up for guard duty so soon.
Remy shows up, dragging Julian along, and it's confirmed that once in a while someone suffers ill side effects of pain and craving for more elixir. It's a price that Gambit has a hard time believing is worth the lives of their family members, even with extended lifespans. But Jean-Luc says the risks are made clear before anyone takes it, to very few refusals. Now Gambit is forced to make this gamble for his wife. And when you know it, there's an explosion at the door. It's the tithe collector, with both guilds in tow, declaring Remy a traitor and his death the only means to restore peace. When bullets start flying, Jean-Luc suggests giving the elixir to their guild, but the X-Man has a sick wife to heal, so he charges a statue of a long-forgotten saint, and it's launched into the courtyard.
Now this is just weird to me. It looks like it's firing through the church like a rocket, but there's no way Gambit could throw that thing unless it was made of styrofoam. I know his powers are all about kinetic energy, so are we led to believe that simply charging it could cause some kind of launch effect or something like that?
I don't remember that ever being the case, and narration just says that he's never used his powers on something that large before, so it doesn't explain much, but moving on. The deafening explosion gives him the time to escape, and the tithe collector orders the guilds to hunt him down and kill him for their benefactress. At Gambit's Garden District house, Belladonna is convulsing like crazy, and Tanti Mardi is trying to restrain her while asking Rogue what happened. Unfortunately, the mutant power sampler just stares out the window, only vaguely aware of the distress, retreating into the memories she semi-accidentally took from Belle, though we see she's intercut the imagery with Gambit making out with a Rogue instead.
Maybe it's because Rogue's always been one of my favorite X-Men, but I'm kind of unsettled with how apathetic she looks here. Is she willfully indulging in these memories while someone is crying out for help, which would kind of make her a bad person? Or is there an involuntary factor here we're not privy to at the moment?
Gambit's closing in on his house, but notices it's not just quiet, it's too quiet. Sure enough, the guilds start firing at him, and he does the same, warning that members of both clans kind of look alike in the dark. He takes a few hits, and there's this itty-bitty panel closely resembling the cover, as anger drives him to unleash a volley of explosive cards and attain victory in the fight. He curses Kendra for her hand and all the blood spilled tonight, and as he enters his house, he begins wondering whether his wife is better off dead, or possibly ending up like Julian. Then there's a certain ex-woman he's been flirting with the whole time. He arrives in the bedroom to find Mardi on the ground and the tithe collector holding both Rogue and Belladonna. I've heard of having a woman on each arm, but this is ridiculous.
Wait. Time out. Technical foul. The tithe collector, who was unable to stand up against a bunch of assassins last issue, can incapacitate the super strong Rogue? I know he lost that first fight in issue 2 because Kendra ordered it so, but did she later just order him to be stronger than Rogue now?
Because Kendra wants Gambit to suffer intensely, the collector does something to Rogue and Belle, using some kind of energy that is presumably going to be fatal for both of them. Fresh out of cards to throw, Remy grasps the collector's coat, not to grovel, but to use his powers on it. Seems that in between panels, Tidy McBalderson let go of Rogue and Bella just before realizing what Gambit was doing and being kicked out a window. The pact is broken. Kendra would never have harmed it again.
Well, did you try saying you were sorry? You never know, she could be surprisingly forgiving.
LeBeau returns his wife to the bed and starts mixing the elixir, Rogue trying to explain what happened while he was gone and confessing her love for Remy. But given the font size, she's clearly speaking too softly, and Gambit's a bit too busy trying to mix an elixir he's never dealt with before, and is basically guessing his way through trying to save his betrothed's life. Whatever his teammate has to say can wait. And that's when a foil-wielding Julian crashes in. Man, these people really like their swords.
See, Rogue? He has so much trouble just listening. He's not right for you. You gotta move on. That and the whole married thing.
Julian stabs Gambit right through his mixing hand, shattering the vial and spilling the elixir, right next to Belladonna.
Missed it by that much.
Gambit's officially had enough, knocks the sword free from his foe, pulling it from his palm, and intent on killing his in-law for good this time. But as he has the sword charged at Julian's neck, he decides otherwise, since it won't help anyone, least of all Belle. Rogue, who was previously just chilling in the background, warns Gambit of the assassin's impending attack, but he's felled by, 11 arrows shot by his father.
He would have shot a full dozen, but he didn't want to be excessive.
Though Marius thanks Remy for everything he did to save his daughter, Gambit is prepared for either guild to just finally finish him off. That's when Kendra shows up, looking a lot more salacious than in issue 3. Before it looked like she had some kind of mesh thing going on below her torso, but now it's just straight up, full-on 90s era female character design. Remy, bandaging his hand, figures the external is here to restore the pact in exchange for his own death, but he'd rather die now. Is that why Rogue is getting all weepy in the background? He pulls off Julian's mask to emphasize their future, and he for one would rather die on his own whim rather than stealing for another's gain. Kendra does as Gambit expected, but with a twist. If the assassins kill him and all the thieves, they get both power and life from a renewed contract. But Marius has already lost both his kids to the old ways, and won't lose his guild, his last remaining family, for the sake of so-called gifts that only offer death and despair. Kendra seems to take this pretty well, actually, mostly just flirting with Gambit over what could have been, and disappearing in a flash of light. Jean-Luc tells his son that, for better or worse, he'll be remembered as the cause of the death of the old ways. And however future generations view him, it's better for the current fragile peace if Remy never returned to New Orleans or the Guild. I love you, my son.
Okay, bye, love ya, never return under any circumstances, bye!
Marius is ready to take his daughter home, but Gambit stops him, having noticed some of the elixir spilled on the bed. He says, Julian stabbed him and it landed on his blanket. I think that's supposed to be this blanket. But we saw it spill on the pillowcase, but whatever. He tears up the bedsheet and seems to lean in for a kiss while praying to the saints that what he's about to do actually works.
That sounds pretty generalized. I pray to the saints. Looks like someone's too embarrassed to admit that he forgot which saint he's supposed to ask a favor for here. I know, right?
Until now, this was the only way to get elixir from a bedsheet.
You mean there's a better way?
Yeah, I just couldn't resist using that reference. Anyway, he squeezes the last of the elixir, apparently tinged with his own blood, from the sheet as it drops into Bella's mouth. Sure enough, she springs back to life. Gambit hugs her, overjoyed she's alive, but she doesn't recognize him. Nor does she remember anything, apparently. Though taken aback at first, Remy eventually says he's just a friend that's been worried about her, and that the other gentleman is her dad. Marius leaves with Belle, and once they're alone, Gambit tells Rogue that he didn't want to overburden Donna with the revelation of their marriage so soon. Her life is still in the Big Easy, where he's no longer welcome. But he brushes that aside, pulls Rogue in closer for maybe a kiss, and though part of him will always love his wife, he thinks it's time he and Rogue finally got serious. She stammers herself at first, even calling him Cher, likely a remnant of her contact with Belladonna, but she says she can't and flies off. This comes as no surprise to Gambit, as he feels like things like love and loyalties aren't meant for a thief like him. He charges a wedding photo and throws it outside. Real classy. The comic closes with narration describing a new legend for Creole mothers to frighten bad children with, of a handsome thief that throws lightning, steals girls' hearts, searches for love he can never have, and is traitor to all. So goes the legend of Gambit.
And that brings his first miniseries to an end. My verdict? It's not great, but is by no means bad. So I guess it's lukewarm.
The art is consistently good and fits the tone of the focal character, not unlike Sabretooth Death Hunt, which I reviewed in the end of the first season. Though this story has the advantage of being able to discern characters clearly from the background. Admittedly, there were times where it did succumb to the male gaze or something similar to it. I didn't find it distracting so much as typical for the era, though it was weird that Kendra, who dresses pretty provocatively, can point to her cleavage quite clearly, yet some of the blood had to be shaded brown as if it was gravy. The story was told pretty well, with only a few problems that, quite frankly, didn't affect it too much. The drama of Marius and Jean-Luc's injuries resulted in them somehow surviving, almost like nothing happened. The tithe collector's powers were pretty vague and inconsistent to almost be convenient. He loses one fight, apparently under orders, then gets molly-stomped in another fight where he's trying to go all out. But for the sake of Gambit's choice, he manages to subdue Rogue. Rogue, who has all that super strength. It's not even made clear what his glowy powers even do to its victims. There does seem to be something of a time-space issue, given that it takes 10 hours to get from New Orleans to Paris, so unless Gambit has a secret supersonic jet he's never told anyone about, he's spending practically an entire day on airplanes.
And really, the legend of Gambit? Not only does that sound a little overly boastful, but narration given at the end hardly seems like a cautionary tale.
If anything, it seems like stories of someone who would throw lightning and is something of a ladies' man would probably have some boys wanting to be more like him. Even if he's branded a traitor, that closing narration makes him seem like Zeus from Olympus, frequenting local dance clubs. And I call bull on him not revealing his marriage to Belladonna. At first he's all about helping her because of the vows of in sickness and in health, but when she doesn't recognize him right away, he's cool with it? How is her life in New Orleans if she spent her recent life in a coma? I can understand wanting to give her time to mentally heal and acclimate, have her memories return, but no sooner does his wife literally walk out the door does he start wrapping his arms around Rogue. What a freaking tool! I mean, yeah, Rogue's hot, no question, but anything romantically inclined Remy does with another woman from here on out is infidelity, regardless of whether or not Belladonna remembers their vows. And cheating is an awful, stupid, and awfully stupid thing to do to anyone. And I'm not sure how he was supposed to have gotten that vial without straight up feeling Kendra up. I know she isn't exactly a heroine, but that doesn't make it right. So, the Raging Cajun? Yeah, he's a jerk and he doesn't deserve any pity or sympathy.
All in all, the pacing and storytelling were fine, but it's about a character that I kind of stopped caring about a long time ago. In the end, when you really look at it, it feels like for all the quasi-noble reasons Gambit had for going on this mission, he ends up as... Good luck translating that to film, Channing Tatum. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.